POD.
Well, Dan, we're finally back after I I don't know how long that took for technical issues and what actually fixed it, but here we are. Fixed it, but here we are. And most importantly, the day that we all been waiting for happened.
Yeah, we're
Happened.
in the hangover. We're in the hangover of it.
Yes, a lot to talk about.
I mean,
Did Netflix debut overall? Little over 3 hours, correct? Or a
yeah,
little
according
under three
to,
hours?
I have it replaying right now as we speak. 3 hours and 3 minutes, I think, was the official runtime on on this replay. Um, which ironically enough still has the commercials. So
So I
I
thought,
thought
yeah.
I thought they weren't doing that for the replays, but so far they do.
So it's only international. I found out that's
Uh,
completely commercial free for them. Um, and big night for NXT as well because Dwayne the Rock Johnson was supposedly stopping by. So I threw that on to see what happens. That's NXT New Year's Evil. Should be pretty good. The NXT shows have been banging as always, but of course, to the big topic at hand, Dan. Netflix debut. What are your thoughts? Let's
I
start.
mean,
Go through the card, talk about
yeah,
whatever. Like, let's just.
yeah. I mean, overall impression, I thought it was great. Like, this was a big event. I guess what I'll say, because I think there is a lot of discussion about this. I think there's a decent amount of people that feel that it fell flat of expectations. I don't know that I would say I think it fell short of them, but I think the problem was is they built almost an unattainable expectation. I thought it was really good though. I just think they probably like, I mean, people put the whole talk of like, this is kicking off a new era, this is the biggest show ever, this is this, and it felt that way for sure. So it was like you were never going to live up to it, right? Because everybody thought it was just going to be nonstop surprise, nonstop, but it had surprises. It had great big ticket matches. It felt like a
WrestleMania,
PLE,
if you
right? It
look
felt
at
like
what's
a
on the card.
yeah, it felt like a PLE with the match card. The idea of it, how big it is, the debut of it, the pomp and circumstance leading up to it. So I think it was impossible to outdo an expectation, which means I think it just met the expectation, which for wrestling fans means it fell short of it. Because when you meet the expectation, it means you fell short because everybody expects it to be even bigger than what you think, right? I mean, we were doing it all night last night. We were, as it's going on, we're saying, oh, this is whatever, and then we're going, or is it, right? But the or is it never came, right? So I thought it was a really good Monday Night Raw, though. It felt a touch long, but I guess, we haven't had 3 hour Raws in a long
Yeah,
time. So,
it's tough to judge, right?
that's whatever. But I don't think, Triple H he interviewed by Sports Illustrated and said, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. It's going to be flexible. We're not going to be held to any constraint, but the sweet spot is a little more than two, less than three. So I don't think you'll see 303 every week. I think you're going to see 2 to 2 and I probably 215 to 230. I bet every, consistently somewhere in there. Um, I think last night though, I mean, when you think about it, the first 20 minutes was promo for
It wasn't
just
even.
this episode.
It wasn't even
Right.
promo. It was just like
No,
a
I mean, yeah,
thank you speech, right? Of like,
yeah, that's what I mean. It was promo for this, not promo for
yeah,
wrestling. It
it
was
just
promo for
thank you to
what we're doing
everybody
here.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. This is groundbreaking. Here we are. You're a part of it. You're here. You're being watched by potentially anyone in the world right now. Like, this is being streamed worldwide, first time ever, for a weekly, whatever. Um, so you could cut 20 minutes out of this like for any other show, you probably cut that out. And that brings you to 240 easily, right? You probably also have a few less in between match like breaks, interviews to talk about the big debut of Raw on or WWE on Netflix. Um, so yeah, I bet you anything next week's show is going to be 2.5 or less. I bet
So
for sure.
I was
I would
think
put money on it.
I was thinking about this. I'm wondering if they had The Rock come out and do that thank you speech at a different time, like in a different part of the show, would people's instincts or opinions of this show change? And I think it might have, because I don't think they expected The Rock to come out and just do like. I don't
Yeah.
think they expected The Rock to come out. I don't think they expected the businessman Dwayne The Rock Johnson to come out.
Yeah.
They expected the final boss to come out, right? And
Right.
over a dozen of the tweets that I saw on Blue Sky or whatever, they were saying like it was a good show, but how does this make sense when he points to Cody and he says thank you? And like you said when we were watching it, well, they can always go back to that. And yeah, they could. You're right. They could always go back to that. But at the same time, I feel like I feel like they lost a little bit of that by having The Rock do that. Like that was one of the big criticisms, right? Like they could have had
Yeah.
the Rock come out, did the thank you, and then have him turn into the final boss real quick, point at Cody in the stands and say, "You should be saying thank you to me as well," or something like that, right? Just to continue it down the road. Because that's the first big criticism that I saw from people on Blue Sky was they weren't expecting the business persona of The Rock to come out. They were expecting the final boss to come out so that you either know he's going Cody or he's going Roman. Because technically, what we saw
Yeah.
last night, you can't tell which way he's going because he came out and he hugged Roman. He put
Yeah.
it on his neck. He crowned him basically, just like Roman's uncle and father did back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
I don't think I think if they I don't know, but that's the thing because we've been told time and time again The Rock's gonna do what The Rock's gonna do, right? So The Rock probably felt
Yeah.
there
And
there
I
was
don't
a
know if it
business
would have
meeting.
mattered.
I, I I think it might have partially changed some criticisms, but um, because technically we only got what 4 matches, right?
Five, 4 or 5, right?
We got
We had
Tribal Combat
Tribal Combat, Punk Rollins, McIntyre J, Rhea Liv.
4.
I guess it is only 4,
Yeah.
right? Am I missing one?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I guess we only got 4.
And I think if like I know this is John's first night back, and he's probably not ready to take a bump or like to do anything with anybody just yet. But if there was somebody that came out and just like ran his mouth, right? If they kind of like had Cena out there, and then as Cena's getting done with saying his thank yous for having him back or whatever, then you have the whole Logan Paul thing hit of him saying, "Hey, John, the company doesn't need you anymore because I'm back full time," right? Like just to have something build off that, there was like a lot of gray area things that like I don't think people were like that I would say like wasn't really wrestling or
Yeah,
tied to wrestling, and I think that might have been it. Overall, I feel like they looked at the WrestleMania 41 card and they pulled 4 matches for the first night and said, "This is what we're doing on the debut of Raw." They picked the correct arena for it, right? Like that looked awesome with the blinking seats on every song. You could actually tell like what fan. So those blinking lights, from everybody that doesn't know, Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, he runs a special where like he can actually go through the data and go to the exact seat of the loudest person in the arena at any time to give out like prizes and stuff. So like the fact that WWE like now has that technology because they were working with that of like, hey, if we wanted to, like this is something else that we could incorporate into the show, right? But it looked
yeah,
like there wasn't no bad seat when they like panned out like anyways, because it looked like all the seats kind of just gave a perfect view of the ring. Um, I think the crowd was gonna be hot no matter what, right? I don't think you were gonna get a flat crowd.
no,
Well,
I think they're, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think some of it is people need to just like
yeah,
calm themselves a little bit. Like this was bound to be a little bit like this. Me personally, I don't know that it would have mattered where you put the Rock because once he walks out, people would expect to see the final boss. If you wanted to avoid that, then you probably should have done a pre-tape, you know, like earlier in the day with him or something, but that wasn't going to happen. It was going to be him.
yeah.
Um,
Or I just thought maybe he does that thank you part, like as they're leading into the post press conferences, right?
yeah,
Like something like
something.
that. I ju- I
Um,
personally expected the final boss to come out and just talk shit to somebody, and we got
no, yeah, we got
Moana. Like we
well, we
got
got member of the board.
yeah,
We got member of the board
which I get
for
like,
sure.
but he still could have threw something in there. I feel like, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like
But
going
maybe, I
into
mean, it might be. It sounds like maybe they're just, they might just be abandoning that story for whatever reason. In one of his Instagram lives or videos after the fact, he had a few of them, and one of them was with Cody,
yeah,
and they
drinking,
were
right?
toasting and drinking, but they were talking about his beard. And I'm sure everybody picked up on it. If I did, then most people would have. He said, like, he's growing it out for a roll down the road. Well, that roll can't be that far away because a beard doesn't take that long to grow unless he's trying to grow a Duck Dynasty beard.
Well,
Like,
and he
you know what I
looks,
mean?
and he did look a little bit smaller compared to the last time he came back to wrestle.
Yeah. So I mean,
Because
maybe his schedule
Roman,
did change.
yeah,
You
and
know, so they're just abandoning it. I mean, and they have plenty. We've talked about this. Like, I mean, right off the bat, like
oh
we they have plenty of stuff in the hopper they can do with this bloodline thing. Um,
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they can always keep. I mean, that's my thing. When I said it last night, it's the same. I feel the same way tonight. Look, all that needs to change is next week, if they wanted to, he shows up and he comes out and he clotheslines Roman or he whatever, and they have Paul Heyman in the background laughing, and boom, your story's right back, right? Like, and it's just yeah, this piece of monkey crap, jabroni believed me last week when I draped this Ula follow over him. He doesn't deserve that, right? Like, I mean, that's how easy it is, right?
Yeah.
But they also, CM Punk is still owed a favor by Paul. You've got that sitting in your back pocket at any time you want it, right?
Well,
Like,
and yeah, and Punk hit that after match promo pretty damn well. We'll talk about that as
right,
well.
right. So, maybe they're suspending it for now or whatever. But I also think this plays into Triple H was asked not about this directly, right? But he was asked about that lead up video they did, the little promo video where it used like insider terms of shoot and work and heel and face.
Yeah.
And at the post show conference, he was asked about that. And I thought his answer was interesting because I think it also points to what they did with The Rock and Cody and um, a few others, um, which was he basically said, "Look, we're not hiding what we do from anyone anymore. Like we are a performance art. People know we're a performance art. I don't need to insult your intelligence. Like any it's different now is what he basically was saying. So I think in a way that also kind of says like, yeah, we might just have The Rock come down and be member of the board rock and thank Cody and thank Roman and hug Solo on Instagram after, like, right, and hug them all, and they're all in the gorilla position together. There's no blood feud going on in the back anymore, right? And they're showing that. And you know we're we're okay doing that, and even if in 2 weeks he goes back into character, that's just going to be what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know
I mean, I still think they're
I mean,
gonna.
it's kind of like how they do it at the Hall of Fame, right? Like the Hall of Fame ceremony has always been half character, half not, right? Like some guys stay character, some don't, but they don't, like, because it just depends on who it was, right? And even these press conferences have been like that. For some of these press conferences, Roman, you know, prior Roman dominance, him and Paul stayed in character during press conferences. Last night he wasn't in character
It
at
was
all.
kind of both, right? When they asked him about The Rock, and he goes,
Yeah,
why would I answer that when you guys do the job for us, right? Of like I didn't,
yeah.
but I guess on Fightful's post for all reviews, Sean Ross Sapp disclosed that a source tied to WWE Creative told him that The Rock's involvement for WrestleMania 41 was never guaranteed. He explained that the final boss has to do Moana reshoots around that same time period.
Yeah, right. So,
So
I mean, yeah. So they might just be like saying like, "Hey, we're going forward without assuming you're not here, so you don't have to be in character tomorrow." I mean, I it probably already happened, right? But he's at NXT tonight, so I don't know what he did there, but I would assume it was not really in a character.
he's on later tonight, so probably towards the end, I'm guessing.
Oh,
Iboa,
he is. Huh?
yeah, Iboa of Russell Purist reported the same thing as Sean Ross Sapp, but he said from what he's been told or what's being talked about, the match on the slate right now is Cody Cena, and Triple H has a couple of WrestleMania cards prepared in case of emergency. So, what a card possibly being Cody or Rhodes, Cena, and Reigns Punk being the headliners,
Road Cena. Interesting.
which we did say that John's going to win the Elimination Chamber. So then,
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if he could win the Rumble and Punk wins the Chamber.
well, here, let's go through these matches real quick, and then we'll get to that because now my ADHD is just turning to
On
to
Overdrive.
yeah to talk about the Cena stuff because I was thinking about that today too. So first match of the day, we were surprised. We thought it was gonna be the Rhea and Liv one, but it was the Tribal Combat. Thoughts on that match?
I thought it was really good. Obviously, I mean, I think this is universally thought that it started pretty slow, but it's a main event type match. So like that's how main event matches start. They're slow, right? Like
Yeah,
this isn't, so yeah, it started kind of slow, but it picked up real quick. I thought it was good. The the Kevin Owens like interference was weird to me, but I know like they just kind of wanted to pull that in, but it was just weird, but it was a nice little shock,
yeah. But
like
then again, that's a
um
different angle down the road, right? Because it's one more person for KO to be pissed off at now, right?
Yeah, and he was
So
like helping Solo and like trying to get Solo to cover him, and I thought that was weird, but like, I get it, like Cody Roman, whatever, it's fine. Like it was just weird, like that's where I was thinking like maybe we get another Samoan debut, but not yet. So,
no,
um, but yeah, no, I thought it was really good. I was surprised it was first, but I guess I figure once you kind of realize that maybe The Rock's not going to be involved in it, you know, it makes more sense that it's first instead of ending the show with it. So, um, yeah, I thought it was great. Thought it was great.
see, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Solo. I think he drastically changed it in the ring. I think that's been his best match yet of what he can do. Um, he was able to tell the story. He was able to take the bumps. He was able to give the realistic blows to Roman that it's believable that Solo's gonna walk away tonight, right, with the necklace on his neck, right? It well, because there was a couple shots in there, like, and I also thought this to myself too. Solo has the best rock bottom ever.
Solo has it.
He spikes them. It's just the way he gets them up, like almost inverted, and then he legitimately just spikes them. They don't call it the rock bottom. They call it
Right.
the I forget what the spike's called, but they legitimate like I feel
Well, you mean the Samoan spike or
no,
like
well,
Umaga's move or
it's like the rock bottom he does.
Uranagi?
Yeah,
They say the Uranagi. That's like the traditional name
yeah,
for it.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
the do Japan term for it. But the way
Oh,
he
I
gets
think
them
yeah.
up and just like destroys them on their back, it looks so believable every time because he gets them so sideways that it basically looks like he's just throwing them into the ring. Which, big fan of the black ring, not a big fan of the ref uniforms. We could talk about that after this. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, KO popped up kind of weird, but then it also did get me a little bit excited because it's like, okay, well, if Roman gets the title back, um, as my idea of KO getting the title and Roman taking it for KO gonna work out here because I wouldn't. I did not expect KO to get involved in that match. He was farthest from
Yeah.
the farthest person that I thought that would get involved. I thought
Yeah. Same.
I thought like
It it was random for sure.
yes. Um I thought we may have seen Drew get involved before we saw KO in that match. Just because of Drew's hatred, right? So it gives
Right.
Drew the chance to one up Roman in a in the biggest part of his return, right? Because Roman needs this match. There's no way he walks away from this with a loss and can ever get back to being in charge of the bloodline. Like it would have been officially dead for the original bloodline after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had everything. It had the weapons, it had the stiffness, it had the speed, it had the storytelling with everybody coming and getting involved. I mean, my mom even sat there and watched that one with us and she liked it. So like for her that barely watches wrestling, she thought it was good, so you know it had to be good. But yeah, I mean, I once again that's a WrestleMania headline that we got to open up the Raw on Netflix, which it shows you how important the show actually was to everybody on the creative team. After that, it was the Live in Rio, right?
Yeah.
Um, Once again, I thought Liv has improved in the ring. I thought I was very happy to see Rhea get the belt back because I was getting a little bit tired of the chase. I don't know how many more times they could have had her chase. I thought if they got through the women's Royal Rumble and she won the Rumble, and then Rhea goes back after Liv. I think you can only do that one more time if Rhea lost on Monday night. I just because it just seems like it's been going on forever now, right?
Well, they had that stat when she was walking in
Yeah,
about like her only two singles losses have been to Liv Morgan in the
y-
last year or whatever
yeah,
the hell it is. Yeah.
yeah. So, um, I think that further cements what we both thought before, that we're gonna get Charlotte back at their Rumble, and I won't be surprised if Charlotte wins it and then goes right back at Rhea. Because don't forget, what is it? A couple years ago, Charlotte passed the torch, right?
Yeah.
So Charlotte might want to see where she stands. Um, yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that one, Dan?
I mean, yeah, another good one, right? Like another main event type match. Good match. Pretty fast paced,
Yes,
I
very.
thought.
Yes,
Um, yeah. No, I thought it was just a good match. You know, a little bit of the post match stuff, just the Undertaker thing was awkward,
very,
but
very.
you know, whatever. Like I do think, and this is probably a little bit of I think overall in the show, I think they had a little bit of I don't know if they changed anything with like who is on the production like deal for Raw now. I did feel like there was a little like bit of like disjointedness with the the flow of the show, but that again that could just be like jitters and maybe because they were doing a lot of different stuff like Eric and Conrad talked about this. There was a lot of different camera views than they normally do. They tried a lot of different things, but there were little things that were kind of awkward. Undertaker's entrance was a little awkward. The drive on the motorcycle was like weird, like a little oddly delayed, and like the camera kind of stayed with her. And I think the point was to get him coming up next to her, and like it just took a while. But then also something little I noticed, right? A couple of times when they kept going to the crowd to show different celebrities, they went to the wrong one first, right? Like, and they
Or
had to go back, right? They had to go back, right?
or
Like
if they
with
were, yeah,
right, like it's like our camera started on LA Knight, but it really was Rey Mysterio's turn, and then we went back to LA Knight, right? Like just little things. But again, I
yeah,
think that was just probably like those are iron out the kinks type stuff. So yeah, I mean, cool that he was there and they did a little thing. Just a little bit awkward on the presentation of it, but
yeah.
yeah, whatever.
I told you when we were watching it, I thought Taker screwed something up because I thought when Taker originally came out, I think he was supposed to like acknowledge Rhea, then go down around the ring, get everybody amped, come back up to the point where like they pose at the top of the ramp and then they leave. But she kind of walked down like a quarter of the way they posed, where like he does his thing where he throws up the fist, and then they both walked away, or she walked and he drove away. So yeah, that was a little bit off. Yeah, and you're right. The cameras in the crowd seem to be screwed up a little bit when they were trying to like show multiple celebrities at once. I thought it was more of them trying to do like everything they wanted to do, and obviously over time, I mean, just think about how many years they got to simplify the camera work with Raw on U- USA, right?
Yeah.
So if like that's the only issues, like where they kind of titled the wrong people and these small
Well,
things.
I have it on right now on the little screen, and here's one. So they showed Bianca and Naomi, right?
Yeah.
And then they went over to X-Pac,
Yep.
but Shinsuke's name started to come up,
Right.
and they had to quickly jump to him. Like they just had it out of order, right? And
And
then
it's
and
this.
then and Cole actually said it. Oh, our cameraman loves X-Pac, right? Like it was noticeable enough that they decided to address it in
Yeah,
commentary.
which is fine.
You know, right? Little kinks that I think like again probably just shake off the nerves a little bit. Like I'm sure even internally, everyone was billing this as like the biggest Raw in history, right? Like, so stuff happens, but that's live television too. That's the best part of it,
Yeah,
right?
right. Like I think we should have expected a little bit of this because they couldn't practice this beforehand, right?
Yeah, I guess in theory they could have, although they had Pat McAfee live in
Yeah,
the arena
but
during the day.
yeah, but your camera people are not going to practice where people are constantly in the seats, right? Like yes, they probably know where they're going to be about in certain
Yeah,
sections, but like them going and have to find them in the crowd or like them got to move around people is a lot different than okay, let's do a dress rehearsal of all the camera guys.
right.
Yeah, this same thing happened to Wale, right? Like he's one of the biggest wrestling fans,
Oh
and
yeah,
they went
yeah,
through like 4 or 5 people in the stands, and then they finally turned back around, and Wale's still standing staring at the camera guy. So it happens.
yeah.
I didn't. To me, the most obnoxious and weird thing was the Undertaker thing, and I told you that when we were watching. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like, but that was the only one that tr- truly bugged me because I just like like I didn't know if he was coming out to pass the torch of Rhea's the next big badass that's in the WWE, right? Which fine, cool, I get it. She is like do that, but then it just didn't make sense, right? Um, do you remember that? So that happened after the Liv and Rhea, right? What
Him riding out. Yeah,
Jay and so then it was Jay versus Drew, right?
yep.
What's your thoughts on that one, Dan?
I mean, it was just a good match. I mean, it was of the whole show. Like that's kind of like the throw-in match. But really, Jay is just like red hot. So like
Yeah,
you
he's
got to have him involved. It was a good way to get Travis Scott in, which they knew they were going to do. I thought Hunter's post show comments about that was hilarious with how he thanked Jay for just saying no to drugs.
yeah,
Because he was like, that could have gone differently if Jay had. Because, like, I guess I didn't, like, even realize it in a moment. Like, Travis kind of was going to pass it to him, and he's like, no, I'm good.
yeah.
So that was funny, but also I guess it showed you a little bit about, you know, what is going to end up not being, they didn't cut away. So, um,
Well, and I guarantee Travis probably didn't let anybody know that he was planning to do that, right? He just did that.
no, I mean, it was like Snoop at the Super Bowl, right? Like they asked him not to smoke on the field. He did it anyway, right? Like, you
Yeah,
know,
there's a difference between Snoop and Travis, but yeah, yeah, I get it. It's
yes and no, but like, I
I
mean,
get it. It's
Travis is just going to do it and not
yeah,
tell anyone. They assumed Snoop would do it. They asked him not to do it, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever," and he did it anyway because like he just smokes it 24/7. So,
yeah,
um, but listen, it got people talking, and at the end of the day, that's what wrestling loves. So,
yeah. No, I was a big fan of Jay versus Drew. I love the fact that they said that Jay never beat Drew, and then Jay beats Drew because Drew gets over a cocky. He sets him up for a final Claymore, and then he gets pinned in a rollover, which is awesome because then it just furthers the anticipation of Drew wanting to destroy the bloodline, right? Like it's like that's what it's gonna be. Because now he's just because when he got pinned 1, 2, 3, what's the first thing he did? He tried to lunge at Jay like halfway across the ring, and Jay was already out of the
yeah.
ring and running, right? So you could tell he was furious. Um, after that, we had a WWE legend get booed out of the building. Please, Dan, tell us your thoughts on that.
I mean, definitely not shocking. I mean, I was a little surprised at how sustained it was, for sure.
From the second he
Um,
stepped out there.
yeah, I was a little surprised that they kept it strong. I initially thought like, oh shit, this will. And in my head, I was thinking like, oh, this will peter out. Like they won't cheer, but they probably will kind of chill on the booing, and they just got louder. So, I mean, he stumbled through that promo trying to figure it out, and like, you know, look, he deserves it. He had it coming. You know, I don't know what they thought by having him out there. Like, I don't know if they really thought too much about it, but it is what it is. Like, whatever. He was in the heart of liberal land for sure, too. So, like, I don't know that you could have expected anything different, but this is the choices people make. So that's fine. He has the right to his opinions,
Yeah,
and people have the right to boo him for it. And that's probably what's going to happen for a while. Because, like, what I think happens, the difference might be is I think, like, if he shows up again, which I'm not sure he will, but if he shows up again in, let's say, a very red state, Midwest, maybe, and he shows up there, like, I still don't think he gets cheered. I think he probably just doesn't get booed quite as much. Like, his
yeah,
time has come and gone, and unfortunately, like, in his quest to continue to be relevant, he's done things that have now just like bit him in the ass when it comes to his wrestling fandom and career and history. So whatever, but it was something to watch for sure. I guess I never realized, like, we were talking off air before we started, right? Like, you know, his history goes obviously way beyond him being at the Republican National Convention, but he was more forgiven for his history than he's being now, right? Like, he's been cheered prior to this, but post racist comments and post sex scandals and all that stuff, right? But this obviously was just the last straw, and on top of it, you're in freaking Los Angeles.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, what do you expect?
oh, The Rock and his daughter are together on NXT, and
Well,
he's
that makes sense.
carrying around that stupid belt. Um, or it's on the 24/7 title. Um, yeah. I mean, obviously, their WWE's creative thought about this was we understand what Hogan might face, but then again, he's Hulk Hogan, and that has to be bigger than the booze, right? That was probably their original mindset when they brought him into this. You think, Dan? It's
Yeah.
just Hulk Hogan, the brand, right? Yes, he's gonna get booed, but at the same time, it's the biggest Raw we've ever had. Hulk Hogan's a big brand. People will probably forget about it long enough for him to get some cheers, and then he can get out of the promo, right? Yes, he'll probably get
Mm-hmm.
booed, but it should be more cheers. And I feel like, yeah, like you said, it just backfired. Like, Hunter's probably back there just grabbing the headset, like, oh my god. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they really thought he would be booed that much. Like,
it was consistent from the moment Jimmy Hart stepped out
yeah,
there. Because I,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess maybe they thought wrestling fans were more forgiving or not caring. Like, that would be the other thing. Like, maybe they thought the demographic doesn't care about politics as much. Because, I mean, we talked about this last night. Obviously, he wasn't at the RNC, but Undertaker has been a big Trump supporter, and he hasn't been shy about that.
no, he's talked about it in
And
podcast couple episodes. Yep.
yeah, and I mean, and then like the Mick Foley thing, like, brought it back to light, and
And then
you know
Batista.
he
Yep.
he had comments about Mick, and how he still loves Mick, but Mick's wrong. Like, he kind of acted kind of like Trump in that sense. So, but nobody's booing him. But obviously, the difference is, he wasn't night three, main speaker at the Republican National Convention either. But so I don't know, maybe they didn't think he would be booed that much, even though I started this by saying it's not shocking. Maybe they did think like they'll get through this. It's a cameo. We're not doing a story with
Right.
them.
It's
Like,
the
you
persona
know,
has to be bigger.
right. The character is not the person, right?
Right.
Like, but they treated him like Terry Bollea. But even in that point, Eric has always talked about this about him, knowing, being such a close friend of his, that there is a very blurred line between Hulk and Terry,
Yes.
right? Like, and Eric has talked about that of like, there are two different guys, but it's about as gray and hazy as it gets with wrestlers, with
Yep.
him specifically.
Yep.
Obviously, because I mean, this is a guy that carried wrestling in two different eras and decades in two completely different ways and was mainstream and was this and like, yeah, he didn't have this great movie career, but like that's something that more evolved later in life with wrestlers becoming big movie guys too. Like, commercially, he was just widely, right? Like, he was the guy with his own vitamins and his own ice cream bar and his own, before John Cena, right? Like, Punk had talked about that, right? Like, so maybe they did think, like, yeah, they're not going to boo the character. They might not like the guy, but they love the character, right? Like, Hulk Hogan, right? Like, this is Hulk Hogan we're talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, they probably, yeah. I got to imagine they were sitting back there. There is a video on WWE social media, or at least there was, of his like walkout. So behind the scenes video of him, Gorilla. Music hits and he starts to walk out, and it's like, holy crap, those boos are loud,
Yes.
even in Gorilla.
Yeah. Yeah. They were not having it. Which, I mean, he probably tarnished his character, right? Like, bringing his character to the RNC, he probably tarnished it. And that's kind of like on him not protecting the character. But, like, at the same time, like you said, like, that whole, the line between
That's an
Terry and
interesting
Hulk,
point.
like, they said, like, and even Kevin Dash had said, like, ever since Hogan was the guy that basically did conducted the ultimate surprise on the wrestling w- w- world, right? That night when he came out with to help Nash and Hall, that was the iconic switch that no one thought we would ever see, right?
Yeah.
Like that was it. So from that moment on, Nash has said this time and time again on the podcast, on different podcasts, on anywhere that he's asked about Hogan. That kind of started the creative control. Like, because Hogan walking out of there, Hogan understood what he did that night. So, I mean, and to be honest, with how many times the guy's been sued, getting in trouble for this, getting in trouble for that, his personal tape gets out there. With all the negative stuff, it's just kind of like, when they say like a punch drunk fighter doesn't know when to walk away. I mean, he's still hanging on to this, right? Case in point, we saw Virgil do this for how many years, to the point there's a blog that was started called Lonely Virgil, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, and it it gets to the point where it's sad, but um
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you were saying when you started this. Like, I wonder if it would have been different. Like, you never know, but had he come out at the RNC and just been Terry
yeah,
and not did the shirt rip and
right.
not did the voice and the brother and all that, would they treat him differently now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a he has more of a chance of it being less booze and just quiet than it actually being the distinct booze from the moment he walked out there. And I told you that as I was on the walk back from getting something to drink. I said, they are booing him. And then all of a sudden, I send you the screenshot at the end of the night. Somebody had subtitles on, and it said "crowd boos."
Yeah, I pointed it out when we were watching live.
Yeah,
Netflix, Netflix subtitle, which I'm sure is AI driven, puts in crowd booing. I was like, oh boy.
like it's gonna be a while for him to live that down. Like he has to go away for a bit. If they were expecting Hogan to kick off any of their shows, I mean, maybe if they do a Netflix Raw in Tampa, Florida, sure. But like,
Yeah, there'll be areas where he'll be
but I
fine.
think
He'll
he
still be
just has to go
popular.
home for a little bit and stay off the internet and stay off podcasts. Like,
In the moment, I thought what he should have done was just turned it into a heel promo.
well, I
But
told you he should have yelled down the hallway. No, that's the wrong song, and then have them switch it to the NWO song. Right there, I think he would have got them all back. I I think that like him just going straight heel. I think that would have just been like, oh, he's still Hulkster, rather than he's the guy that
yeah,
basically,
he's Hollywood Hogan.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah, he's the guy that made a poor decision based on his character at the RNC, which probably tarnished it for a lot of people. Like we saw how volatile it's been. Like if you vote for this
yeah.
person, all right, I'm not talking anymore. Like it's been crazy, right? Like we've seen it with people that we know on and off. So it was nuts, man. Um, yeah, it was nuts. So real quick, we didn't talk about it. Um, after the Tribal Combat, we have a vignette that basically confirms Penta L0M is coming to WWE because they did the little
Yeah,
outline graphic.
they had been teasing it without finishing the outline. Then last night they finally finished the outline, um, which was cool,
Agreed.
which is great. And then obviously wasn't long after that we got our information on who he's facing. Most likely, since Chad Gable asked Adam Pierce to find the greatest luchador he can. So that'll be cool. I'm like super excited for that next week, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, which is nice that they didn't blow it all on the first episode and say like, oh, here he is, like give a little more suspense, make us, not that we weren't going to tune in next week, but give us a little extra reason to make sure we don't miss it, because at the end of the day, like, you know, good and bad, right? Like, it's going to be very easy to catch Raw if I'm busy on a Monday night now, right? Like, not that it's that hard to begin with. Like, most people that have any basic cable package likely had DVR for, ability too, but, just a lot easier now, But yeah, no, that's cool. I can't wait for him. That's something that very positive for me with AEW is introducing me more to him mainstream, right, than me having really, like, because I just never really got into watching AAA or any anywhere
Right.
else where he was featured more often. And I really liked watching him. I mean, there's a few guys at AEW that I just became huge fans of that I barely knew existed prior to AEW, which is cool. So I can't wait for him to be in here. I think the crowd's going to love him. I think they're going to go crazy with him.
Yes.
Um, I'm interested to see how, I'm going to say this two different ways, and I mean it both ways. I'm interested to see how WWE evolves him and how he evolves WWE, because I'm sure he's not the first guy, but he's the first guy in recent memory that I can think of. Maybe you could probably dispute this better than I could, but that comes from a comes from a division of wrestling that isn't often seen in WWE, right? Like Penta and certainly Ray Phoenix as a team, very like spot driven, high spot, you know, not that that's all he can do, but very high spot, multiple spot match driven type wrestling just in the areas he was in, very indie driven, AAA, AEW, right? That was that New Japan, like that's a lot of focus there. WWE has never been that. So I'll be interested to see how they evolve him, but then he also evolves them a little bit to say, look, it's okay to let me do like these crazy spots every week. You know, maybe I won't do it 20 times in a match like I might have on AEW, but you're going to get 3 or 4 out of me every week that the crowd's going to go, holy shit, you know? And now you won't have to blank out the cheers anymore. So,
Yeah,
I'm interested in that because I think there's a lot there that, they're going to develop him and character a certain way, and he's going to develop the product a little bit to an area that they, have, historically shied away from.
yeah, I would. Yeah, I would somewhat agree with that. I would say you could say the same thing about Ricochet when he was Prince Puma. There was a lot of hype when they signed him, but he couldn't take the Prince Puma persona with him, so that was part of the problem. Um,
And they've always stripped those guys for the most part,
well,
right? Like
based
of a
on
lot of that.
who was in charge, right? So like,
Yeah, sure.
this is the first clean slate. We're gonna let you do what you do type thing. I mean,
Right,
and you can kind of say that's the same thing with Elgin Jericho for anybody that doesn't know. That's Sami Zayn.
right.
And you can kind of say the same thing for Kevin Owens, who is
Oh, yeah,
Ke-
yeah.
Kevin Stein, right? As well. So, yeah, I mean, but then again, it's the first one under the new
Hmm.
management, and I think that has 90% of what to do with of what's gonna push this. I think if Vince
Sure.
was still there, he wouldn't have been signed. I think the
No, I agree. I agree.
I think with Hunter there, this works out perfectly because not only is this, I mean, they say they're not competing, but obviously, if they have any chance to pull the top talent away, they're going to pull the top talent away, right, from each other. That's just what they do. It competing's competing as much as they don't want to admit it, but it also works out with the fact that they got their WWE ID program starting, which they're going to have their first ID match on Wednesday or Thursday night on Twitter at 7:30. So that's starting, right?
Yeah.
So you bring in another veteran guy that traveled the world, that's done everything, that can, I mean, and he's probably got what, a good 5 years left before he's father time catches up with him if he stays healthy. You would say based on his age, um, 5 to 7
Yeah, I
years.
would think so.
So you got another guy that can take that talent that you have in WWE ID and teach them things, right? So it's kind of, you get the best of both worlds. You get you have indie guys on your roster that have become stars. You're bringing in an indie guy that's done everything, that did his time at AEW, and he's also going to help the culture as well, right? The one
Yep.
thing I'm interested to see is the whole time he's been at AEW, I believe he's had a mouthpiece.
Well, because I think in real life, like I believe I've read this before, like the language barrier thing is
It's
like
tough.
still a thing.
Yeah. So I'm
So
wondering who
yes,
they're going to give him.
he's always had Alex Abrahamtes or
Yep.
Abrahamtes, whatever his name is, who also has a backstage role, but um
And who's also best friends with Ethan Page. So when that contract comes up,
yeah.
don't think it's
Um
too far from the point of the WWE be like, hey, do you want to come work with Penta again? And by the way, we have Ethan Page you can hang out with and buy all your collectibles with on YouTube. Like, because Hunter doesn't care about that stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe I never really. I actually, it's funny. I didn't even think about that. I don't know, but in the beginning, maybe they won't do a lot. I mean, he's got a very like he when he wants to, right? When he goes into like the Penta Negra character, right? Like the all black. He's got a very like dark mystique. Like he doesn't speak anyway, right?
right.
So like, I don't know if they play into that a little bit. I mean, I'm trying to think though. Like outside of like some of the like, what's the last time they had a guy like a true luchador like him?
I,
You know, because he's different than even like Ray and like Kalisto and like those guys. Like right, like he reminds me of
the closest would probably be Prince Puma or Andrade, because you got to think he fought
yeah,
in
well, but they
Andrade.
weren't even. Yeah, but I mean more like in that kind of character. He reminds me of oh god, who was the guy from WCW that always wore a mask and like a black hood. He kind of, you know, like a oh god, what was that guy's name? I'm gonna look it up. We can keep going, but um
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I was very pumped for it because as much as I loved everything he did in AAA, and when he was on Lucha Underground, I can finally get my dad to sit down and wa- watch him, and I don't have to do it by pulling up a YouTube
oh,
clip.
La Parca.
Yeah,
La Parca. That was the guy I was thinking of. Like WWE hasn't had a guy like Penta in forever, right? Like a guy like La Parca, Penta, like you know, this is a whole different type of character for them.
yeah. I
Like
mean,
that they've allowed to stay in that character is my point, right? Like you're bringing up like Prince Puma, but like he didn't stay in that, right?
yeah, because of it. Yeah, well, because of two of
Or
his
like
characters.
Psychosis, right? Another WCW guy, right? Like you know, just different from like they were different to me than Eddie and Ray and you know like
Yeah, I agree. No, whatever it turns out to be, I'm a big fan of. I'm just glad he's here, and uh,
yeah, he's 39 years old.
yeah. So I was like 5 to 6 years before.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, because he also in talking about like that evolution, like he won't have to do like 22 really dangerous high spots every match like he does outside of WWE currently, right? Like, you know, like he won't have to do a Canadian destroyer onto 8 tables stacked up, you know?
right, because Hunter
Like
doesn't believe in that.
right, and he'll extend his career a little bit by not having to do all of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Um, and then real quick before we talk about Seth and Punk, John Cena's welcome back. Kind of flat, would you say?
Um I guess I can see that criticism. I didn't necessarily feel that. Um
It
but I can
it
see
got
why people would feel that. I
it.
just kind of like I just expected it to be I'm back. Tonight is my tonight is my welcome back. I'm kicking off the end of my career. The last time is now. I know I said it, but now I'm going to talk about what that means, what you're going to see out of me, and obviously the whole point was just for him to declare into the Rumble. I mean, he clarified later it's 36 dates, you know, total. So it's a little over, you know, it's once a month, or I mean, 3 times a month, but not necessarily matches every time. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can see why people would think that. It didn't necessarily fall flat for me. Yeah, I guess I would have hoped somebody would have interrupted them just so you could kick something off. But then again, the Rumble's in less than a month. You know, the Rumble's basically, for all intents and purposes, at the end of the show, for that show, the Rumble is 3 weeks away.
Yeah, hell yeah.
They probably felt like we don't really need to do anything to create a story for him because the story is he's going to chase a championship. He's on a streak of losses right now, right? His singles matches, and
Yeah, that's what he
and
said a dozen times, right?
right. So so it's all going to focus on the Rumble and Elimination Chamber. Like you might not even see anything in between those two events for him other than some promos. Um, unless he does some tune-ups or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that thought for sure. I think that was just what I kind of expected.
Yeah, it just felt kind of flat when he came out with the crowd. I feel like the crowd eventually got there when he kept edging him on with everything he was saying. But just the way he came out, it just felt kind of, you know,
Yeah,
kind of just
yeah,
flat. But then again, you know what? I feel like if they waited a week and they gave him next Monday show to his welcoming, I feel like it would have hit louder as well. So, but yeah, in 3 weeks we get him back, right? So,
yeah.
um, that's gonna
What
be
number do you think? What number do you think he'll be?
so for him to win it. Where do you think they put him? I don't think he can start from say he's the second guy in and he can run it. I don't think
I
it.
think.
I think
I don't think they do. I don't think they do. He runs it, but runs it from one. But I bet you anything he's in the first 10.
ooh, if he's in the first 10, I don't think he wins it.
Um, yeah. I mean, I think they could. But I also wonder. I mean, I think I said this off air too. Like, I actually kind of am going back down the road of maybe it's Punk. If he was supposed to win it last year
Now this is
and
his
then he
year.
doesn't, this is his year. Um,
I think we see Cena.
this is his year, and then Cena wins Elimination Chamber. But Cena lasts a long time in the Rumble. Like the story might be since they kind of played up the losing streak and all that, and like him talking about how maybe the 17th championship is unattainable. The story probably is going to be he keeps getting very close, but doesn't quite get there, right? Which they've kind of played with before. Like, remember the whole no WrestleMania match for him, and then he's in the crowd,
Yeah, he
and that
bought the
was a
ticket.
way to bring right, and that's a way to bring Undertaker back at that time. But like, or he challenged him, but then Undertaker never responded. Like that, but that was a little bit of like, I'm going to not be able to obtain something that I've never been able to not obtain before. So my guess, I think it's either him or Punk winning. That's who I'm putting my money on is him or Punk. And either way, I think he's within the first 10 because I think you bring him in really late and he loses. That's weird to me,
Not
unless there's a story
not
on
three
that.
weeks from now. Not 3 weeks from now. I think if it was any further, yeah, I'm calling Punk and or Punk. I'm calling Cena anywhere from 23, 24 to the end. I think is where they bring him in. I just think because they got all this young talent, right? Like, I'd be highly shocked if we get to the Rumble and we don't see Oba Femi from NXT, and we don't see Trick Williams. Like I
Well, and a lot of people assume you're going to see Joe Hendry. Like they've been quiet with him, but
well,
like,
and other people from TNA that's been spotted backstage as well. Like not just Jordan
yeah.
Grace. And there's been a couple of people saying they did the year that they sent out Naya, right, for the men's. Was it her?
Um, Naya went out for the men's. So did somebody else though.
Was
She
it
was.
Beth
I know
Phoenix?
China did it too. Um, it might have been Beth.
Um, China, Beth, Karma, and Naya.
Oh, Karma, right? That was the other one. Karma, that was a long time ago, but yeah. Naya was the last one they did it for,
Don't be
and
surprised
she.
if you don't see Jordan. She has the experience. She's done a lot of mixed gender batches on the Indies and TNA.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they put her into the men's one, just because like I think they like at that storylines they've done with her. Like I don't know. I'd be surprised if they did that. I mean, the women's one for sure. I'd be surprised if they put her in the men's one.
Um, so now we're on the main event, Dan. The main event.
The main event. A long time waiting on this one. As far as this one's been 7 or 8 years in the making, at least, or I don't know, at least 3 or 4, dating back to
Longer than
like
that. But yeah.
I was gonna say like, but well, I'm thinking like it really reignited that when Seth had that one interview and said, let him stay there. He's a cancer. See you later, Phil. Have fun over there. Like so.
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
I thought it was great. Like I thought it delivered on everything people expected. They threw some curveballs with Seth giving him a GTS, right? Like, which was funny because he talked about that later, but as he was munching down on a donut, which is just so funny when he is still doing the pastry thing. Um,
Well, and they did the ode to Punk. Well, not an ode, but they did the Punk versus Moxley, where Punk gave
you know,
Moxley a GTS, and then Moxley bumps off the ropes and falls on top of him. So it's kind of like, and that's when back from when Punk was wearing the full pants, the full pants gear.
right. Right. Well, and he wore. I noticed that right away, and obviously it picked up online. He was wearing the gear he wore at Wembley, which also was his backstage altercation with Jack. But I wasn't thinking about the backstage altercation. I was thinking more of that was his last match in AEW,
Yeah.
and their biggest show in history,
Yep.
and now WWE's biggest show in history. He's wearing that again, right? Like he wore that gear to two different promotions, biggest show in their history at the time, basically.
Yeah.
So,
He
um,
basically just overrode everything he ever did in that gear in the blink of an eye.
yeah. So, um, no, I thought it was great. I thought the match was great. I'm sure it's not over. Punk said that too. He doesn't think Seth's just gonna roll over and
No.
walk away after one match. So we know it's not over. What they're gonna do with it, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, if he wins the Rumble, I'm sure they don't want to just send him on his way until WrestleMania. Like, maybe him and Seth are going to continue throughout until WrestleMania, or leading up to it,
Well, just think if
because
Seth.
if he wins the Rumble, he won't need to be in the chamber, but I bet you they'll be on the show.
Well, and just think if for some reason Punk doesn't win, Seth's the one that kicks him out of the Rumble,
Right, right.
or Punk's the one that kicks Seth out, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will continue, and I think that's fine. Um, so yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. It was a great way to end the show for sure. Um, very good match. Um, very good ending, and like you said, you hinted at it earlier. He had a amazing post show press conference, or I mean, promo right outside the ring. Nice little shout out for Chris Bay from TNA.
yeah,
Thought that was nice of him. Um,
he's
so
going
yeah,
for all the gold. Gunther's. Well,
yeah.
no, first he said Cody. Cody,
Well, he said Cody,
Gunther.
Gunther, yeah, yeah, all the gold, all the gold. I mean, he should have listed them all. He should have listed uh, who's even holding the United States Championship right now. Well, why am I drawing blanks on? Who are the
Shinsuke.
champions right now?
Shinsuke.
Shinsuke, Breaker, right? No,
Hmm.
who's the Intercontinental champ now? Breaker still?
Yeah.
He should call them all out. Why not? You know?
Yeah. That's what he did, right? He basically said for everybody that thought I was just here to collect checks and be kind of a one match here or there, I prove to you again that I'm the best in the world. And I mean, it's tough to say he didn't prove it, but then again, like he looked good. He's healthy. He looks big for Punk. He looks agile
Uh,
still.
he, he looks good.
Yeah,
He looks good
so
for sure.
they told everything. We got a little bit of blood because the GTS like split Rollins under the eye and cheek. Then afterwards, when it was over, Punk sitting there across from the ring, and he's giving Seth to go to sleep, like mimic while laughing at him. I mean, it like from their time together in NXT, from their time that Punk was the reason that the Shield got brought on. Because don't forget, they didn't want It's either they didn't want Roman in the Shield, or they didn't want Moxley. They wanted Ryback to replace one of those guys. That's how the story goes. And Punk said, "No, these are the three that I want as the protectors." And then
Yeah.
what did they go to do? They go on to be what, the biggest trio possibly ever. Some could say in WWE history, like, or with since the Attitude Era, like. So it's not like
Yeah.
he didn't see the talent in him. But then again, like Seth is kind of right when Punk. But I think the best thing about Punk though is that he stuck true to his word, right? Because he kind of had a part of the pipe bomb promo that he used against Seth. He said, "I didn't hate the place I was at. I hated the people in charge."
Right.
And he's
Well,
right. That's
and
why he
that's what he
left.
said. Right. Same
So
problem.
he
Right.
he stayed true to what he said back then. It wasn't I hated where I was at. I hated the people in
Right.
charge.
I hated the guy in charge.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. So I mean, I get it. Like, but like it's kind of funny because Moxley has kind of let a couple of shots fire under the radar towards WWE when he first left of just everything. So it's like, Seth, do you know what your buddy has said in the past? You know what I mean? But obviously, yeah, I don't know. Watching the Punk Seth match makes me feel like Moxley will be back one day.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, look. I think we've had this conversation before. With all the people that they've, patched their problems with, and Punk and Ventura and Jesse Ventura were the two we've talked about the most, right?
Well,
But probably the
and
biggest
Hogan,
gap. Well, Hogan, but to be honest, like I don't really think Hogan was ever like that far removed. I think among the two among the two greatest divides they've ever had with talent has been Punk and Ventura,
and Brett, would you
right?
say? Brett for a period of
I don't
time?
even, to be honest, I mean, maybe for a period, but that got fixed pretty quickly
Yeah.
too. But Brett's another one. Like, I get, yeah, I would put him in the top because of what they did. And then with Owen dying, added another layer to that. But yeah, so Brett, Ventura, Punk,
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, there were other people too that like maybe weren't quite as bad as those guys, but we talked a little bit about Steiner. Scott Steiner originally like had a lot of issues there. They had a big falling out. It's not as talked about as much, but San Martino, they had a big falling out with at one point, years and years ago that they eventually patched. But Ventura and Punk for sure, like because those guys were like never, like none of this never say never. And then yeah, it took 7 years before Punk started saying like, well, I guess you never say never, but I really don't see it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, And Ventura was like, never. And in a business where you never say never, I'm saying never. But obviously, Vince being gone was a big part of all that. So I don't think there's anyone today left that I can think of out there that they wouldn't patch up with if it made sense. And I also don't think like Moxley leaving really wasn't bad blood,
I think
right? Like,
Moxley left because of the environment that he found himself in, right? Because he took a brief period of time off from AEW, or a time from in between WWE to AEW to where like he had to go get clean, and then he went to AEW, and then he took some time off because he had to go back as well. So I think Moxley
right.
was
Well, and
trying
he
to,
did the New Japan thing,
yeah.
right, for a while,
So
and he wanted to do that.
he was trying to get a better version of himself, which I think if anybody in charge would understand, I think Hunter would understand. Could just think of all the crap that he had to deal with when Sean was going through this. Like he kept Sean off the wagon for so many years, right? And even in the
Right.
Click documentary, we constantly heard of when the Click found out Paul Levesque doesn't drink. They're like, "Oh, kid, you're with us," because he was their designated driver
Yeah.
every time. That's just not what Paul did. So, if anybody completely understands is like Boxley trying to get to a better place, but still get his family the best deal possible, then yeah, he had to go to AEW, right? Like, it had to happen that way.
Well, and yeah, so like, but yeah, and I don't think there was like any bad blood, so I could see him coming back. And like, look, as far as like what people say on someone else's program, that's just part of the show.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's ever like, I mean, Punk said it all too, right? What did he say to MJF? Like, go headline night 4 of a buy one get two special, right? Like, and now the whole story is I want to be the WrestleMania main event, right? Like he trashed WrestleMania on AEW TV. That's what you do in this business. You go to the competition and you trash the other competition, especially when you're not as popular as them. How many times have I had this conversation where I say, when you're number 2 or 3 or 4, you always go after the big dog because they bring relevancy by mentioning them right off the bat, right? That's what you do. Eric Bischoff talked about that all the time. So yeah, I don't think there's anyone in AEW that they wouldn't bring over if it made sense, right? Like Moxley, look, I don't know that they would do this because I'm not sure it would really make sense, but if they thought it could make sense, Moxley, Jericho, Edge, Cope, whatever the hell you call them these days, they all could come back, right? They all would come back, right? Like it's never about that. And if Moxley was in a position where he was ready to jump or his contract was up and they had a great way to insert him where he could be a real surprise against whoever, Punk, Seth, Roman, Cody, I mean, you're just printing money again.
Well,
Especially if they let him keep the name.
well. Side note: at the end of NXT or close to the end, you got a new women's champion in Gulia. She got the title, and
She got
then
it. Okay.
Obi Femi takes the title from Trick.
Oh,
So we're going to be seeing Trick in 3 weeks. And now
yeah, probably.
they're showing like a backstage of them like getting congratulated by everybody, and then they still said The Rock is next. So it's like a picture in picture thing. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said. I think we're gonna have to be a longer conversation with Jericho. Just because I don't know if
Yeah.
besides a name, I don't know if he adds value. I mean, I've been asking for this for years, and you know how much I love these guys. Give me the House of Black versus the Shield.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the other thing is, I would love for them to bring Swerve Strickland back because he has created this whole new persona that he never had a chance to be in WWE. And like, you bring him in at the level character talent he is today in AEW, like you could do a lot with him. You made me think of it with Trick Williams too, right? Like, you bring in Swerve in the position he's in now, Like, and you can just erase his WWE history and start writing the new book, right? Like,
Well, and he could bounce back, go take the NXT title, and say, "I want all the gold," and then he could just take a shot at the whole main roster as well.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
there, because that could be another guy for the young people to be like, his first time here, he wasn't quite there. He left, he got better, he's back, and now he's taking over the world. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean the possibilities are endless, and I think that's what you kind of got from this Netflix show, right? Because going into this, you got a WrestleMania card. Even though there was only
Mhm.
4, I understand people were complaining that there was only 4 over the course of 3 hours. I get it. But let's be honest, there's probably going to be close to 5 or 6, I think, every night if they're going to stay around that 2:45 to 3 hour mark. I could see them fitting a 5th or 6th in here, right?
Yeah, well, when
Because,
you cut out a lot of the
well,
crap they had to do,
you're not going to
you
have,
know, plus you're not going to have a 45-minute tribal combat match every week either.
well, and you're not going to start with a 15 to 20 minute rock promo every
No,
match, right? And you're
no,
not going to have Taker every time. And you're not gonna have Hogan. So right there, you probably
right.
get close to an hour back, right?
Yeah,
And
45 minutes at
yeah,
least.
at least. So
Yeah, no, you're gonna have some 10-minute matches, right? Like you're gonna have quick matches.
I think this Raw was more of a celebratory. We got here. We want to give you everything that we can. Here's what we got. Enjoy it. And now we're on to the next chapter in the WWE.
Right. Well, because they basically gave you 3 certified main events and then another match in Jay and Drew that, could be a show stealer type match. So, but the other 3 matches were, certified main events that they gave you just throughout the show.
Here comes the final boss, Dan.
Well, is he the final boss?
That's if you look on Blue Sky, that wasn't the that wasn't the answer last night.
Well, and
But
last night they were playing up that he's, because I looked it up. They were talking about it. I looked it up. He was bestowed some high chief name,
yeah, so
and they
when
were
his
playing that
father
up last
passed,
night.
so from what I read after the show, because of his father passing, it goes down to the bloodline. No pun intended. Um,
Yeah, so he's like High Chief Celia or something.
yeah,
So they were playing that up last night. So I don't know if they can just kind of change that a little bit,
Dan, if you
or
didn't know, he
use
has
that.
goosebumps again.
He's very good at that.
Of giving himself goosebumps.
Yes.
Yeah, so their friend with his sock collection of Hogan dolls. Um,
Okay. Hey, hey,
I'm just saying. Um,
easy. He might be a listener.
question for you. Question for you. Um, this is the last thing I want to talk about, so feel free to jump in with anything else. What he just pulled a Bass Pro hat from the crowd, showed the Bass Pro logo on the camera, smiled, and then tossed it back to the guy in the crowd. Does
Okay.
does Rock own Bass Pro?
No, I don't think so. Maybe they're a sponsor.
Like like did Rock just buy Bass Pro, and that's what this announcement's for? Um, Solo and his crew have to stop using the term bloodline now. Yeah,
Well, they have to. Well, Solo has to acknowledge Roman as the tribal chief,
on the
and
27th, right? You said.
yeah. So, well, that's what. Yeah, Paul said something about the ceremony, and Roman said the 27th. So, um,
Like, what did they
yeah,
do?
yeah. Well, I don't know what they're gonna do, right? Like that's the interesting part. Are they going to
Like, is this the time you
do?
see Jacob do more of a like get a couple solo matches in there while they rebuild what Solo has? Like,
Yeah, so that's what I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I guess we're gonna find out. But like, in the sense of, are they going to? Is he just going to fall in line? Are they going to reform the bloodline? or like a bigger bloodline, or is there going to be a catch to him either not acknowledging or acknowledging, but then having trouble with Jacob and the other two not following suit, and then Solo gets folded back in, but the other three aren't and start causing havoc without a leader? Does Jacob become a new leader? Like that could be something they do too, right? Like, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I don't know. I don't
man,
know. They got a lot of ways they can go with it.
man. Dwayne really loves Dwayne.
Well, when has he ever not?
The guy just went like this to Rock, basically to show me his 8 minutes, and the Rock went like this. So they're going over like imagine doing this to the Rock, and the Rock just goes shakes his head no.
Probably why they put him on last so that they could keep him on a time schedule. Shawn Michaels is probably like, dude, you got to be last. We got a hard out. You have no choice. You got to hit it.
Right.
You got to hit it.
Yeah. That's hysterical. Hysterical.
Well, at least
Anyways,
he's got better. At least he's got better glasses on tonight.
yeah, he probably got some poor feedback. Sorry, probably came from my Blue Sky account. But
Jim, don't get banned on another social media account.
Dad, I did get banned. I'm just not welcomed. There's a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Whether or not your login works, does your
Yeah,
login work?
yeah. I
Okay,
haven't
all
tried.
right.
Haven't tried, Dad.
Well, it works. It works now.
Yeah, haven't tried.
there was
Ha-
there was a time it didn't work, right?
hasn't been on my phone since January 6th. You know what I mean? Gotta,
Well, that was only yesterday.
yeah. No, the original January 6th.
Oh, sorry. 4 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or five almost.
So, yeah. But anything else you think we forgot to talk about then involving
No, I don't think. I mean, anything like as usual. AEW is just dwarfed by all this WWE stuff. I will say, just in one little point that I will make, the fact that I can easily that I can catch Dynamite on Max, because I usually don't catch it on Wednesday nights. Now that I can catch a replay on Max, or if I happen to just be doing something, I could throw it on my phone on Max since it's simulcasting. I might see more Dynamite now, which I guess is a good thing well, I mean, not a guess. It's a good thing for them for sure. So while their deal isn't nearly as attractive as WWE's Netflix deal, um, it should get some more eyes on their product consistently, I should say, at least. So maybe that's good for them.
Yeah, I
But
don't
I will likely catch a little more Dynamite, knowing that I can fast forward through stuff if I want to, and you know, not deal with commercials as much. Hopefully, have to double check that.
the Rock keeps losing his voice, and then he points and he goes, "All right, we got 6 minutes and 32 seconds. This is gonna be the best 6 minutes of your life."
Great.
Now he's going through all his nicknames. Yeah, I agree. There's some work on the house that I'll be doing over the next couple weeks, and I plan to put on all the special events from 2019 and go back and all just watch some of the ones I didn't really catch when they first came out in 2019. So that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, back
Um,
then too, and generally speaking, they've always had decent pay-per-view events. Like
let's be
they've
honest,
never really
it was
had.
good. It was good in 2019. Those events were.
Well, yeah, but even since then, like they've always kind of brought it for the bigger
Yeah,
events. So they'll be good to watch for sure. But yeah, but like I said, I think I'll catch more Dynamite now, and maybe if they can do something that makes me invest in it a little more. But
well,
we'll see.
and he just referred to himself as the final boss.
Oh,
Everywhere he went, every gym, every restaurant, every strip club. Don't be mean to Cody. Here you go. We'll stay on to the end of this because I feel like
Was he talking to the Cody crybabies?
But why on Netflix? Yep. Oh, so now he's complaining about all the people that said you can't be nice to Cody after what you've been saying about Cody for the last year and a half.
Oh, would they blink out? I wonder what he said that they blinked out.
I think he said the crybaby bitch thing.
Uh,
But so he just referred to himself as the final boss for the third time, and he's always 20 booths ahead.
yeah, I turned it on. I'm not that far behind you for once. It is funny that he is like acknowledging the time cue guy so much.
Yeah. Now they're going all night. Here we go. Sean's probably back there thinking I shouldn't have given up drinking. He just apologized to the CW guy in the front row for his language.
Yeah, you're not on Netflix, you idiot.
That crowd is packed for NXT. Stop acknowledging all the love yous and just finish the promo. I don't think he needed to pump up at NXT. Everybody loves NXT. It's not a Dynamite show or a Collision.
We're now defunct Rampage.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Dan. If there's one thing that we learned from this, the next time my wife tells me 2 minutes is not a long time, I'm just gonna refer back to this Rock promo because
Yeah, but
this
no,
feels
you
like
just
it's
be
been
like,
going on forever.
you say 2 minutes now, no, we're going all day long, baby. Yeah, right. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll find somewhere
Well,
in there
you,
to throw in the final boss title.
yeah, let me know how that goes.
Yeah, so
I'll keep it. I'll put the extra pillow and blanket
yeah,
on the
clear
couch
out your
for you.
couch. Yeah, I was gonna say clear out your couch.
I'll
Tell
tell the
Obi I'm
cats they
on the
gotta
way.
find a new,
Yeah,
yeah, new place to sleep.
it's all right. We're gonna talk about this because we're on and screw it. I just did you know The Rock had a wrestling name Flex Kavana? He just said he wrestled in Memphis under that name. I see. Once again, why did NXT need a Rock? I will always come back home. Do you think it's all the rumors that are popping out about WrestleMania 41? Like, why did you
Maybe.
why do you think this was something that was scheduled, or is this just The Rock being The Rock again?
I mean, he said it was scheduled a few weeks ago. I take him at his word for
Well,
that. Like,
for NXT, it it
yeah,
was.
he said like he knew a few weeks ago he was gonna come here, you know, right down the road, all that stuff. So it might be a little bit of him saying like, "Hey, let's use me. Like, I'll be here. Let's get a pop.
Yeah, then it's
Let's
smart
do
business.
whatever." And they're not really gonna. He's one of those guys. Like, are you really gonna tell him no?
No, which I get. It kind of felt weird. He started the promo going of, I talked about all the Cody crybabies for the last year and a half, and then they tell me last night I can't tell Cody to, thank you for what he's done for the business over the last year, and I just want you and everybody here to help me tell them to mind their business, right? Because it almost seems like he was almost there to a point. He was almost there to the point where he was going to start cutting a promo as the final boss again, right? But then, like, it split away to more of he's just there thanking NXT fans.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird. Like, it's just another weird thing. But yeah, it's interesting. But then again, it's probably just one of those things, right? Like, it's the first NXT after the Netflix show. You're gonna get something in there that might feel a little bit off just to help promote or whatever, blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, kudos. And like I said, I would definitely be turning into Max to watch the AEW stuff, just because, like you said, it's gonna make it easier. I feel like it's easier to watch wrestling when it's on at the beginning of the weeks of a Monday than if we get
Yeah.
than if I
Because
get
what else?
bogged down
What
during
else
the
do you
week.
want to do on a Monday?
Right. That when I get bogged down with work stuff during the week, trying to find time at night to get stuff done, I really don't think of, oh, hey, AEW's on. I'm like, let me just get this stuff done. So, and then those Saturday show, that kind of, that was kind of like the other break that I had for wrestling too, to watch that at night. But now that that's gone, so it's kind of like catch AEW when you can, and I think that's its best asset right now, right? Is maybe just to catch it all on Max. And I'm definitely going to be showing the old guys some old AEW stuff, so to see if I can get him watching
We
some of those
should
previews.
we should show him some Penta stuff before we before
I've
next
been
week.
I've been sending him some stuff on YouTube of like old Penta stuff, so been trying to get him uh up to date, but we'll see. But until then, yeah, we'll shoot for another podcast during Netflix the 13th. Should be good. Penta shows up, gets everything going. Um, Penta versus Chad Gable is gonna be very good. I just know. Um,
Yeah, that's gonna be great. It's a
yeah,
perfect first match for him,
yes,
actually.
yes, just rip the roof off the building. Makes sense to me. So until then, like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back on the 13th during the Raw of Netflix. And thanks for paying attention. Adios. See you.
Get wild. Get wild. Get wild. Get wild.